But they always have like a little jokey like intro for
It
our
was just
show of
one
like,
line. It was like they've got a preview card. Don't miss it.
oh, okay.
There we go. All right, so we are live.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and CardHoarder.com, where you can find the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell,
Hey, everybody.
Ruben Pressler.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Oh, hey. So it's been a week. It's been really good. It's been really awesome. I'm going to be going to PAX Unplugged literally hours after this show.
Very
so
nice.
that's fun. But we are unstabling all the time. We've unstabled. We know what contraptions do now, which is awesome, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
I'm still not clear as to what they do.
I will do my very best to explain it.
Yeah.
They are truly strange, but I like them. I think they're going to be a lot of fun, and I think the whole set's going to be a whole lot of fun. And we'll get into some awesomely fun aspects. First, we want to talk about our giveaway. The giveaway we're going to do. We're going to pick a winner at the end of the show. The entries close at midnight Eastern Standard. Of course, it says 29 days left because I set it up wrong, but whatever. So, Ruben, I'll need your help here to post that link the way it's supposed to be. It'll be tweeted out in about 15 minutes from our Twitter account. That said, it's going to be a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com and a playset of our spoiler, which just so happens to be called by Gnome Means. By no means. And I think, and before we show it, I think there's definitely the modern design sensibility is so clear to me in Unstable. Like, where you go back and you look at Unglued and you look at Unhinged and it was all about the chickens and it was all about the donkeys and whatever. Well, now, they've really, I think, worked to give flavor, they've worked to give lore, they've worked to give sort of space, and really things that could honestly exist in black bordered Magic. I mean, for God's sakes, we have a vanilla creature in Unstable.
Yeah.
That to me was amazing.
Yeah, we talked about this in our top 10s video, which we did on Monday, and which everybody should check out if you haven't already. I'm sure we have some new viewers with us simply because we have a spoiler card tonight. But, one of the things we talked about in that video was how much the unsets don't get enough credit for really being innovative, and for how many things we've seen or we saw first in unsets that ended up kind of following over. We talked about Meld, for example, in Big Furry Monster, and then cut to 10 years later and we're looking at an Eldrazi Angel, and we're looking at some rats and some scavengers, and that became a thing. And I'm seeing some things in this new set that, given enough time, we could very easily see in an official constructed legal set, and I think that's great.
And I think, you could definitely see this one. So our spoiler, our preview from Unstable, let's go ahead and put it on the screen at mythicspoiler.com. Clock starts now.
On the clock.
By Gnome Means is a rare from Unstable. It's a white and 2 generic mana for an enchantment. 1 white, 1 generic mana. Remove a counter from a permanent you control, create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. Or 1 white mana, 1 generic mana, sacrifice an artifact, choose any kind of counter a printed card refers to, then put one of that counter on that target permanent. And, of course, the flavor text being, there's no race like Gnome.
There's no race like Gnome.
The pun here, the pun game is strong.
It's very, yeah.
It's super duper strong. And again, I think when you see these different you see these different abilities, contraptions are artifacts. There's going to be lots of contraptions. There's artifacts all over the place. And again, the ability here is not like crazy, like unbelievable. It's just like a really neat ability. It's going to work really well with a lot of what's going on in Unstable. And ultimately, it's an incredible pun-tastic, little spoiler we got here.
It's excellent. We also have the Order of the Widget watermark for our watermark cards.
Yeah.
Which will apparently be a thing that's relevant. This card's super sweet. I mean, there's a bunch of... I already know that it functions with, like, Sword of the Meek, and some other hilarious interactions that exist with already existing Magic cards. Mm-hmm. Very powerful card, I think. That I would be happy to first pick in my either unblock draft or unstable drafts that are coming up in the near future. So I love this card. I think it's great.
also, if you have a commander group, I'm under the impression that not every commander group is okay with these cards being used. But if you are fortunate enough to play in a group that does let you use it, this could also see play in many EDH decks. Every EDH deck has their mana rocks and their utility artifacts, and there's bound to be counters of some kind, whether it be planeswalkers or whatever. I can think of at least 2 of my EDH decks. I know my Marchesa deck could probably use this, and so could my Sharoom deck to some degree. And I love these cards, and I'm not a drafter, but damn it, I am 100% likely to try and draft because this set just looks like fun.
I mean, the idea that you can pay 2 mana, take a loyalty counter off your planeswalker, and make a 1/1 artifact creature token, block with that token, and then after blocks, pay mana, sacrifice that artifact, and go ahead and put it back on your planeswalker is pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is the first card that, there are a lot of cards out there with things like proliferate or add another counter of that type, but this is the only one that just says, even if it's got 0, if it refers to it, you can put another counter on it. You can run out of counters pretty easily on things like Sunset Pyramid, for example. So this is a pretty cool way to rebuy on some of those already used up permanents that you've had in the past.
So, By No Means came to us thanks to Wizards of the Coast. Thank you very much for our exclusive preview. It's awesome. I love it. I like the picture is really cool. And who doesn't love a good pun, right?
I also look forward to signing all of your Gnome tokens in the future, in association with your Magic Mike's tokens, of course. But I really am looking forward to all of the tokens in this set, but now especially the Gnome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now we enter the world of contraptions. A joke made 10 years ago in Future Sight, they got to be good, right? They got to be really good. They're reprinting Steamflogger Boss. This is the only way you're going to be able to sort of make them. Because even if they were to say contraptions are legal in Legacy, nothing makes contraptions except cards and unstable. So if, years down the road they decide to put contraptions in Magic, well, then all of a sudden these things become relevant again. But let's go ahead and bring up the first card that they spoiled, which they did by sending 9 pieces to 9 different sort of outlets. They sent one to myself for Gathering Magic, so I got to put that up there. They sent one to Star City. They sent one to Vorthos Mike, which had the dog on it, which was amazing. A lot of really cool stuff was going on there. We haven't pieced together a card since Jace in World Wake. Right. It was time to do it again, and it was for a pretty good reason. First, Planeswalker before abilities, brand new card type that does something super strange. Let's take a look at it. So, the contraptions themselves, Dogsnail Engine, they have no mana cost because they have to be assembled via an ability. Something has to say assemble a contraption. First, you'll have your contraption deck, and for limited and for casual games, it doesn't matter how big or how small your contraption deck is, whatever. But if they were to be constructed, it is a singleton 15-card deck is supposed to be your contraption deck. Now, on the back of them, they have this start the game with a crank counter on Sprocket 3. Okay. Basically, you got to put a counter of some sort, like a penny or a bead or something, on this Sprocket 3 on the bottom right-hand side of the card. Because essentially, what these contraptions are doing, they're going to fall into one of 3 columns. They're going to be in column 1, which is Sprocket 1, column 2, which is Sprocket 2, or column 3, Sprocket 3. Now, when you assemble them, you decide wherever you want that contraption to go in either of those 3 sprockets. Now, every upkeep, if you have a contraption, you move that crank counter to the next sprocket, and 3 goes to 1, and then it goes to 2 and 3, and then back to 1. And whenever you move the crank counter to a sprocket, every contraption underneath that sprocket in that column fires off, which is called cranking, as it were, because Dogsnail Engine is an artifact contraption that says whenever you crank Dogsnail Engine, target player gains life equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So essentially, once you're able to assemble it, every third turn, you're going to get to fire off that ability. If you assemble another contraption, you can put it underneath this one in that column, or you can put it in column 2 or column 3, being Sprocket 2 or Sprocket 3. So if you have multiple contraptions in one column, they'll all fire. You don't have to fire them off if you don't want to. You can do them in any order you want. And it creates this sort of sub-game of, during my upkeep, do I have these cards over here in these columns? If I do, I'm going to move that counter along that sort of, along that track. And Aaron is looking at me like I'm speaking with 3 heads. So tell me.
But to be fair, I'm also who still doesn't know what Memory Jar does. So take that with a grain of salt.
Fair enough. I tried to explain it the best of my ability, and that said, I think that they are they definitely could work in black border. Let's put it that way. They're weird and a little bit confusing, but they could still work. Ultimately, they're just about things that happen at different time periods, and you section them off.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. So I'm looking at Mythic Spoiler right now, and so I'm looking at some of the contraptions, which we're certainly going to talk about. So it sounds like we're going to have to keep track of something.
Yeah, you keep track of, again, there's a counter at the top of every column, and it keeps moving.
Okay, let's
right, they don't have the contraption card itself on the spoiler page.
Okay, so
I
that's
think is a big missing piece.
Okay, because I'm like, where exactly am I keeping track of these?
Right, so
things?
there is a contraption card that isn't on the Mythic Spoiler page right now, but basically, and this was on the back of the 9-piece Dogsnail Engine puzzle. Basically, you have it's going to be on the backs of inserts or tokens or something like that, where you have start the game with a crank counter on Sprocket 3, and then the back of your card has little spots where you can put a marker of some kind.
Okay.
And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a contraption, move the crank counter to the next sprocket, and then crank any number of that card's sprockets, right? So basically, all right. So I'm trying to help you visualize this here.
No, I think having the card will help a lot. I just got lost because a lot of what he was mentioning I wasn't visualizing. Right. I tend to learn visually, and I was just like, I'm not imagining this. So seeing the card, I think will clear up a lot.
Right. I put the card in G-Chat if you want to take a look at it there. It's also going to be on screen. Essentially, and this is the back of the card. What you're looking at is the back of all contraption cards. So your contraption deck, you'll have the ability to use the sort of the next one coming as sort of where the marker goes.
Okay, that makes much more sense. Thank you.
All right, I drew this rudimentary diagram on a scrap piece of paper. Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the card that has the 3 circles on it, that's going to be your cranks and your sprockets. At the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to move from left to right, and then activate all of the. So if there were, let's say, 2 contraptions underneath the 3 here. So let's say that it starts on number 3. So we move it from 3 to 1. You only trigger the 1, right? You only trigger this first one.
Move it to your left a little
bit. Then the next one. There we go. So this is number 1. Then on your next upkeep, you move the crank and you trigger this one. Then on your next upkeep, you move it to the left and you trigger both of these because both of these are under this sprocket.
Is it me
and
or
then
is
you
your
go
finger
back
dirty?
to 1. It might be a little dirty.
Oh my god. This is a nice example of Wizards, for God's sake. Can you not make an animated GIF like one time? This is the time where we needed it.
Time to make an animated GIF for sure.
I can't imagine. They're like, hey, there's this new thing. It has to do with like where cards are. There's a counter that's going to keep moving across these columns, and they don't show us in any way how they actually function in real life.
I would have even settled for an infographic or infograph. I know they love to do those too. Like that would have been a nifty plan B. But yeah, for the visual learners like me, we're just like, what?
Ruben just did a better visual graphic than anything they've posted so far, and that freaks me out.
And I know they've got people on staff who are fluent in GIF. Let's be honest. Like,
well, and also we Time Mythic Spoiler got it up. Good job, guys.
We did.
Good job.
Well done. So. Ultimately, contraptions are really interesting. They could be legacy legal if they wanted to, because there's no borders, which means there's no silver border. But they have to print something in black border that assembles a contraption, because all sorts of things assemble contraptions in Unstable. And to assemble a contraption, to be clear, you'll take the top card of that deck and then you'll just flip it over and you'll put it in any of those 3 columns you want.
Right.
And
so assembling a contraption just means flip over the top card of this deck. Put it somewhere.
Right.
Now, can you assemble a legion of contraptions? Is that...
No.
You could, but not really.
Ruben, give me a B, at least.
B. You get a B for that one.
Big ball B.
Thank you.
Ball. All right. Fantastic. So I wanted to bring up, now we talked about Dogsnail Contraption was the first one that they unveiled. Bring up a few more just to give you an idea of some of the power of these things. One is BB Gun, which is a mythic because it is totally stupidly, ridiculously powerful and limited. Like crazy. Because whenever you crank it, until end of turn, target creature gains 2 generic mana : this creature fights another target creature.
Yeah.
So you could put it on something indestructible, or you could put it on something with death touch, and you just mow people down, which is awesome. And there's another one which isn't quite that powerful, which is just an uncommon in genetic Recombinator, which whenever you crank it, up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 until end of turn. And again, you don't have to trigger these abilities if you don't want to. But, it also allows you to plan. For example, if you don't have any creatures out and you turn over that genetic Recombinator or whatever, you can put it on a sprocket that'll fire, in a 2 turns away, So if sprocket's on 1, I'll put it in the 3 column because next turn it'll go to 2, and then the turn after that, it'll go to 3, and it'll fire that thing. So you can plan on things firing off.
So and let me revisit this again, sorry. Yeah. So is 3 the cutoff point? Like you can't do any more once it hits 3?
No, it resets to 1. So in your upkeep, it moves from 1 to 2. Then the next upkeep, it moves from 2 to 3. Then the next upkeep, it moves from 3 to 1.
Okay, thank you.
So each of these effects will happen every 3 turns, basically.
Okay.
Correct. Now, originally they had, he spoke about having, 4 different, what we would describe as sprockets, 4 different places, and you put it on the bottom of the card, or the right of the card, or the top of the card, and they would go around in a circle, but 4 was just too long to wait to get something once every 4th turn, so then do it every 3, they do it with columns. Now, it starts on 3, so that you can put something in column 1, and on your next turn, it'll go to 1, and they'll fire. So that's cool. But ultimately, I think they're weird enough. We waited 10 years for this. I think they made it sufficiently weird enough. It looks like it's going to be really cool. I love the idea of assembling multiple contraptions, and contraptions are firing off, and there's cards that manipulate that. There's cards that do things like crank all of your contraptions in a certain sprocket or whatever. Calling the column sprockets in and of themselves was just kind of strange.
And cranking them.
Cranking them is what you're doing.
You have a all caps crank exclamation point counter. I mean, obviously we need it to be a little bit weird because this is an unset, but...
And there's two contraptions in every pack of Unstable.
Which is a lot.
Which is a ton.
So Unstable Limited is going to be weird. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, and it looks like, a lot of these cards...
Don't shuffle your Sprocket deck into your main deck. Don't use the same sleeves. Don't use sleeves on your Sprocket deck,
don't do that.
Now that I think about it, just don't do it.
But I want to pivot here into the what they did with the contraptions themselves, which was they didn't just make different pieces of art. No. They made one gigantic piece of artwork for all 5 factions. I have a couple of them on screen, and these massive murals are broken into 9 different cards. So, they just so happen to make the exact number of cards for you to put those things in your binder, and they will make one complete picture. And so that is amazing. They're going to make posters of this. They're going to give them away later, and I think in December. That was a brilliant idea. You have full art all the way to the borders. I think that foil contraptions are going to be super high in demand, because if you're going to collect them, even if you just want the mural, even just want to have the full set, these things in shiny are going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
So the idea of a big mural was super cool.
These are the ones that are going to hang behind Erin now. She's going to take down the art for the boring plains and the boring island, and then hang up all the contraptions.
Whee!
Except for the red associated ones.
Yeah, that one can join the mountain in the closet. But
So a full mural for these things, I think, was great. I think they did a great job with that. But we have to get to some of the cards because they've taken some of the in-jokes in Magic and they've cranked them, if you will, to 11.
Wow. Well done.
This guy. All right. So I got it. The first one we have to talk about is Crowstorm.
Oh my God.
For a blue and 2 generic mana. This is an uncommon sorcery that creates a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow and also has Storm. Because with the flavor text of Stormcrow lonely, boon for a birder, Stormcrows together likely a murder.
This is playable. Like, I mean, we already have Empty the Warrens. I mean, like, oh my God. Like, I would 100% storm off with crows if I had to, and even if I didn't have to. Like, this is gold.
Yeah.
This card is busted. Let's be clear. This card is not even close. It is like busted, being Bustersons over
Put that in your Walmart intro deck. I mean,
right?
Yeah. Let's make that happen. Mm-hmm.
And Erin, hey, you said they were going to reprint Storm, and boy howdy, you were right.
I'm kind of hoping that we already have something on we have a mechanic with a 10 on the Storm scale. I would sell my father to science if it meant we got a Dredge unglued card. Like, please, I promise I'll be such a good girl next year.
I gave you a couple suggestions for names.
You did Fridge from Below. I particularly like.
Fridge from Below would give you a lot of frozen zombies.
Because I think we all have had that basement growing up. You have that cooler in your basement, and
yeah. That's where you keep the ice cream, is in the basement freezer. You don't keep that upstairs. The upstairs is for after. Yeah, the upstairs is for the hungry man dinners. Downstairs is where you keep the good ice cream, right? Because because the ice cream gets protected by the monster that lives in your basement.
That's right.
Which you can summon with Fridge from Below. See, I thought that was a really
See, we did it. We figured it out.
Yeah. Well done, fam. All right, so Crowstorm, obviously referencing, how powerful Stormcrow is. Foil Stormcrows from like 7th edition are worth like $40 or $50 for no reason other than it's just a silly.
Of course they are.
First of all, any foil from 7th is already weirdly rare, but like the joke has gone on. We have the joke. I think it was something like every Wizards R&D member eventually, submitted the same Stormcrows with Storm.
Yeah, and then they didn't change it, which is, I'm sure they didn't change it because it's the perfect casting cost. It does everything. Yeah, I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah. It's amazing. Rules Lawyer is up next because not only did they make this card, this is going to be a judge foil, and it is
that is awesome.
Perfect. Oh my god. It's a 2 white, 3 generic mana for a rare artifact creature of Cyborg Advisor. It's a 1/1, okay? And it's got 1 line of text followed by a ridiculous soup of reminder text that says state-based actions don't apply to you or other permanents you control. And you know what? I'm not even going to read
I'm going to do the end of the radio commercial, super fast read on it.
All right,
the Micro Machines guy.
Yeah, Micro Machines. All right. State-based actions don't apply to other permanents you control. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life for drawing from an empty library. Your creatures aren't destroyed due to damage or death touch and aren't put into your graveyard due to having 0 or less toughness. Your planeswalkers aren't put into a graveyard if you have 0 loyalty. You don't put a legendary permanent into a graveyard if you control per 2 with the same name. Counters aren't removed from your permanents due to game rules. Permanents you control attached or combined illegally remain on the battlefield. For complete rules and regulations, see Rule 704.
Did the end of the car commercial, all the little stuff to be there.
Sorry, no CODs, etc. Yeah.
Now, I've seen some people say, what really would have made this card, what really would have put the cherry on top is if this was a 1/0, because because it wouldn't have killed itself. Now, you can't kill it with damage at that point, but you could kill it with like Doomblades and Exile Effects and Wrath of Gods and whatever. So it wouldn't be unkillable, but in and of itself, it would be able to live, which is crazy. Because right now, you could just kill it. If you kill it, then everything kind of goes back to normal. But I think that would have been even more.
If you have 2 of these on the battlefield at the same time, no one can kill either of them. I don't think.
Basically, I guess without a Wrath of some sort.
You need a Wrath. And theoretically, you can still kill your opponent with stuff like Door to Nothingness and Battle of Wits, because those are triggered effects.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this card is this is a heck of a thing.
And to have it be the judge promo is just, I can't. Well done, Wizards. You did an amazing job on that one. Now, one of the cards that came out today was Baron Von Count, and first of all, Wizards really went deep into the souped up, crazy mastermind, I am smarter than you speech and unveiling this, which was amazing. But Baron Von Count himself is a black, red, and 1 generic mana for a 3/3 mythic legendary human villain. Shout out to the villain creature type, which is amazing. And on its artwork, you see the Baron, and you also see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 clearly legible as sort of spaces on like big clocks.
Yep.
And he enters the battlefield with a Doom counter on 5. And whenever you cast a spell with the indicated numeral in its mana cost, text box, power, or toughness, move the Doom counter 1 numeral to the left. When the Doom counter moves from 1, destroy target player and put that Doom counter on 5. Yes, we got there, fam. Destroy target player, yeah. Woo!
Yeah, I would play the command. I would make this my commander in a heartbeat.
All right, so it starts on 5. So we pay 1 blue mana for Kraken Hatchling. Didn't we pay 0?
It doesn't. If you play Commander, it's not red or black.
Oh, okay. We need an 0/4 for 1. So we just play Steel Wall.
Dismember is -5, -5.
There you go.
Okay, so Dismember, Steel Wall, Phyrexian Walker for 0, Ornithopter for 0, and 1 of some kind.
Phyrexian Arenas 3, Doomblades 2. Yeah, you could do this, and even with red, I would totally play this.
So destroy target player, huh?
That's amazing.
He reminds me of a dark version of the Count from Sesame Street, where like it's great. Yeah.
He counts down your doom.
I would play this.
It's so good.
Oh yeah, it's a 3/3 for 3. This thing beats up on bears by itself, and then also it's a human villain, which is amazing. Yeah, this thing's just great.
So Baron von Count, I think, did an amazing thing. We now have destroy target player on a card. That is absolutely a term I could see making its way into Black Border, just as is. Instead of Door of the Nothingness doing target player loses the game or whatever, you just say destroy target player. That's how it works.
So if we're Stormcrowing, we get a 1, a 2, and a 3 out of our Stormcrow copies with Baron von Count, by the way. So all we have to do is go like Lotus, Lotus. That's all we have to do is go Lotus, Lotus.
Of course,
and then Crowstorm for 3. So there we go.
And to be fair, Ruben, to what you were saying, Baron doesn't have to be your commander. You could still put him in a Grixis deck and have access to your blue spells, or even in a Jund deck and green spells. So yeah, he's pretty versatile.
I'm interested to see what destroy target player. Does that mean target player loses the game? Are you door to nothingnessing people?
I would imagine.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I love it. That's great.
It's just the best way to say target player loses the game that hasn't shown up yet, and please adopt it immediately. So next up is a pair of new keywords. Now the keywords in this set have just been the hottest of fire, absolutely on spot on. And this next one is Last Strike. The extremely slow zombie is a black and a generic mana for a 3/3. 2 mana 3/3. It's a common zombie, and it has Last Strike. This creature deals combat damage after creatures without Last Strike. And one of my favorites is that the flavor text is just brrr, because he can't get out brains. He's so slow.
Let me just make sure I'm clear on this. So it says this creature deals combat damage. Doesn't that mean it's already dead?
It could be. If it's dead,
it's like first strike deals damage first, last strike deals damage last.
So like if it's up against another 3/3 that is just a normal 3/3, it's just
then this will die.
Yes.
Well, that led us to another card, Three-Headed Goblin, which for 2 red, 3 generic mana, you have a 3/3 that has triple strike. It deals first strike, regular, and last strike combat damage. Basically a 5 mana 9/3.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
The flavor text is great.
When you become immense, it deals. It's the best thing to put a giant growth on by a wide margin.
Like ever.
Sorry. Yeah.
Aaron, what's the flavor text?
It's true that 2 heads are better than 1, but after that you run into diminishing returns.
And for a goblin mutant, it's a rare.
Accurate.
It's so good. Absolutely amazing. And I don't. This is one of those where I'm like, I don't know if Last Strike could actually make it into a Black Border set. Like it would, I think, make some amount of sense. But it's more jokey, I think, than actual gameplay driven.
We're so used to First Strike at this point that we don't even realize that First Strike is like kind of a ridiculous name for an ability, right? I think.
Double Strike still comes up in judge calls all the time.
Right. Multi-kicker. Like these are super explaining what they are in the rules, but have no bearing on what they might do if these cards existed in real life. Whereas Vigilance or Trample or Flying at least makes sense in the context of a storybook in your mind. Something with First Strike just makes as much sense as something with Last Strike.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Double Strike was a big deal, and it was crazy when it first showed up. And then Wizards was very afraid of putting Double Strike on cards because, oh my God, it's basically dealing double damage. And then now we've gotten more and more sort of close to the idea that like a 1 mana 1/1 with Double Strike wouldn't be that crazy. And if you were able to make 2 mana 1/1 with Triple Strike, that would also be pretty interesting. Sure. But our next one is just so terrific. It's the Slain Mantis. For 2 green and 5 generic mana, it's a 6/6 uncommon insect wrestler. We have the creature type of wrestler. With oh my god, this mechanic is just a second. As long as this spell is on the stack, players can't move cards on the battlefield. You know how perfect that is? It's just perfect. You could stop this card with Force of Will, but nothing else. That's it. Now, Slain Mantis enters the battlefield by being thrown from a distance of at least 3 feet. Because on the image, you have it coming down, with the people's elbow. Yeah. And when Slain Mantis enters the battlefield, it fights each creature an opponent controls that it touched as it entered. And that is just beautiful.
I love that Mauro described it as luchadorable in one of his comics today. That keyword is that word is gold.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that Just a Second appears on multiple cards because it is a perfect thing. Like the Chaos Orb falling star ability of throwing something in the air is a great thing to take advantage of, and Slaying Mantis is doing just that. And it does it like this is just a flavor win on so many different facets. It's so good.
I usually just absolutely hate dexterity things, but man, the flavor of this is just so good. You're just like from the top.
Don't let the fact that Slaying Mantis is a card distract you from the fact that in 1996, the Undertaker threw Mankind off of the top of Hell in a Cell through the announcer's table.
Yeah.
Because I'm a meme, is what's happening there.
So I definitely congratulate on Just a Second. I love Just a Second. It's so sweet.
It's such a good card. Or such a good ability, yeah.
So up next, we wanted to bring up some of the last few cards we want to talk about here. Spike Tournament Grinder showed up and damn near crashed the Gathering Magic website for a little bit. It is 2 black Phyrexian mana and 2 generic mana. For a 1/1, for a rare legendary creature of Human Gamer, of course, completing the cycle of Timmy, Power Gamer, and Johnny Combo Player. And it has the ability of 4 black Phyrexian mana, choose a card you own from outside the game that has been banned or restricted in a constructed format, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Complete with the girl in the image having the Nope shirt. Which
let me just say, people want that shirt, and Wizards is not selling it. That is such a missed opportunity.
I believe there's an update to that story where Aaron Forsythe said that they are going to start selling that shirt.
Okay, because the feedback on that was, the majority of the feedback I saw was, wow, this is really awesome. That's a lady gamer. And number 2, where can I get that shirt? And seeing him reply to people with, we don't have it, was like, really?
If you go to Aaron Forsythe's Twitter, he says, stay tuned for Nope shirt updates.
Okay, because that is...
Hashtag WotC staff.
That's money in the bank, yeah.
I mean, this is one of those, maybe you weren't planning on it. You should do this.
But now you are.
Yeah.
Right, because he said he wouldn't do it, and I just replied, with the Ryan Reynolds gif of, but why? Why don't you like the money? We want to give you the money for the product. That's what we want.
T-shirts aren't hard to make.
The hoodie, it really makes this for me because that's what says Tournament Grinder to me is the is the 1/3 zipped pocket hoodie. I mentioned everybody in the game I think knows somebody who looks like Spike.
Wouldn't be a show without Ruben Tater. That sweet tater. Y'all, it's back. It's back. It was not here last week.
Ruben Tater Grinder. It'll just be potatoes floating around him. That would be great.
Oh, man. Ruben has straight super tatered. Ruben, come back, buddy. We miss you. Ruben.
Someone spend 4 black Phyrexian mana to get Ruben back from...
And he's back. Yes.
Oh, good job.
Yay.
Am I back?
You are back, yeah.
Welcome back, buddy.
I mean,
so
I sort of lost my momentum, but I was saying that when I first saw the card, I think everybody knows somebody that kind of looks like Spike Tournament Grinder, and a lot of folks were tweeting that they're like, oh my god, this is me on a card, including April. I said that it looked like Pamela Horton, who's a YouTuber, and some other folks out there. But for me personally, I have to tell you, I thought that this was a very androgynous looking person, and I know some dudes that look like Spike. So it's an interpretation as how you want to do it. And I know some women who are nicknamed Spike. There's a dealer at the MGM who's like a 68-year-old woman who's the snappiest person I've ever met in my life, and she will just murderize you with her one-liners named Spike. This card's a home run. I love it, and we spent all day trying to figure out what are the best things to go wish for with your Spike tournament grinders and all that good stuff. So.
Oh, man.
It's funny when you mentioned Ruben, the hoodie being ubiquitous to tournament grinders. I can always tell how hardcore somebody is because they're carrying the 2-gallon jug of water.
Yeah.
Screw your water bottles. Screw your little paper cup. Screw the thermos they give you. No, I'm bringing a jug. Like, that's how I know somebody's not messing around, when they're lugging around the jug of water.
Oh, man, I can't. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He made his own storm counter. SCG made him a storm counter.
Caleb Shearer.
Caleb Shearer. He only eats peanuts. How min-max are you in your life that your literal meal starts with peanuts, ends with peanuts?
Wait. Right. You mean like every day?
Every day. Every meal. He eats the amount of peanuts equal to the amount of calories.
No way.
I was just like, no, seriously. I'm like, when do you, he's like, no, I eat peanuts. That's his thing.
There was a period of time where I think Gerry Thompson subsisted only on Tombstone pizzas. Mm-hmm. There's a story that I heard from Patton Oswalt when he did, this is back from Comedians of Comedy, the original Netflix, when you got Netflix in the mail comedy special, where he said that he lived on fried rice for about a year. Like, only bought oil and rice and like lived on fried rice for a year. So that is weird, but not unheard of.
It's so min-max. I can't.
It's very min-max.
I could see if you were like superstitious and it was like the weekend of the event and you were like, I'm here, I only use these sleeves. But if you're not playing, like if it's just your daily life, like that's wild.
I recall him mentioning, vitamins and peanuts.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like eating the same thing day in and day out.
I don't think that. Wow, that's something else.
Very nice.
I think that it's possible to survive on like rice, beans, bananas, and milk. Like those 4 things, literally only those 4 things, not with vitamin supplements, nothing else. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on that, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure there's a combination of 4 things that, and 2 of them are rice and black beans, and then 2 other things to help round out your diet that you can live on 100%.
Where did you get your nutritional information? Well, I listened to this magic podcast one time.
Dr. Ruben Bressler.
Dr. Bressler explained, but Dr. Bressler is your father.
What he did was he did a couple sentences really fast in a row, like the end of those medicine commercials, and so I thought he was a doctor. That's how he got.
So moving on here, Grusilda, the Monster Masher. We can actually play the Monster Mash now. For a black, a red, and 3 generic mana. She is a 4/4 legendary zombie villain, and it says immediately combined, enchanted, and equipped creatures you control have menace. And for a red, a black, and 3 generic mana tap, put 2 target creature cards from graveyards onto the battlefield combined into 1 creature, with the rules text of its power is equal to their total power, toughness equal to their total toughness. It has their names, mana costs, types, text boxes, everything. And this was something that Rosewater had mentioned multiple times over the years of just like, and I think it was Alexis Jansen who said, if you could just bring in 2 creatures and paperclip them, paperclip them together so they're combined. This is the closest I've ever seen to, basically that's happening. They're saying take 1, take 2, stick them together. This is sort of what I think you would want in Geralf to be doing. But, we got it in the onset, and that's okay. I'm ready to combine some creatures from graveyards.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This card speaks to me on many levels. My friend Nick mentioned if you're a Drag Race fan, RuPaul's Drag Race, there was a queen last season named Sasha Velour, and Sasha Velour could easily pass for the model for Griselda. The resemblance is uncanny, but yeah, she speaks to me on so many levels. She's legendary, over the top, zombie,
hey yo,
villain.
Yeah.
I mean, I am Griselda, like hell. Like this is totally my life. And yeah, I love that. And I like kind of what you said, Evan, the idea of, you know, the problem with meld was that you really could only meld the designated cards, where like you had the scavengers, you had the rats, you had Bruna, you had Gisela. I love that you can just sort of play with this and be like, all right, 2 things in the graveyard, that's melding to me. And I look, I'm really excited to see like what the possibilities are, especially in Rakdos colors. Like you can really do some interesting things there. And again, this is another card I would 100% make my commander.
Oh man, and
you guys know that you've never actually heard the Monster Mash. You just heard a song in which a human being recurred that they heard the Monster Mash. At best, it's just a rough approximation of what the Monster Mash actually sounds like.
It's a graveyard smash, dude. It's a graveyard smash.
It was a graveyard smash. They played the mash. It was a graveyard smash. The song he's talking about is simply his reactions happening in real time.
Now, all I gotta say is, I want you to pay real close attention to Gathering Magic tomorrow, because it's going to get weirder, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get really weird, and I love it, and it's great, and I can't say anything else. But
unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Absolutely. Right. So our last card I wanted to bring up to talk about was Split Screen, and that was actually the GatheringMagic.com spoiler for today, which is a 4 generic mana rare artifact that when it enters the battlefield, you shuffle your library, you deal it into 4 libraries, and if anything refers to your library, choose one of your libraries for it. You play with your library's top cards revealed, and when Split Screen leaves the battlefield, you shuffle your libraries together. This, to me, is 100% printable in Black Border. Like literally even as printed, because if all you have to say is just choose a library when something says search, when something says, you know, shuffle or whatever, okay, you know, you brainstorm off one of the libraries, and that all makes sense to me. You know, you draw a card off any of those libraries because that's where you draw cards from.
Yeah, the feel bad of trying to fetch land and going through one of your 4 libraries and not finding it is going to be great.
Oh, so good.
You know, it's funny, when I first saw Split Screen, I immediately thought of us and just imagining, like, you know, us on our 3 screens and there's 4 screens. But it's like I know how much work goes into the show, and, you know, from it being Evan's side of things, I just imagine the silhouette being like Evan, and it's like me, Ruben, frame 1, frame 2. These are the preview cards. This is the article we're talking about. I just imagine that's what Evan's life looks like.
Yeah, so, that's basically what is happening. Yeah.
I just love the idea that, you know, this was one of those, like, it's so crazy and zany, but like I think just 100% printable in Black Border, and I love it, just like our spoiler was. Yeah. So, lastly, about Unstable, sort of the cards themselves, I want to bring up the original Magic Art website, where they had the ability to show all of the full art tokens.
Yes.
So the tokens they have are Angel, Beast, Clue, Elementals, Saprolings, Spirits, Thopters, and Zombies, and that's cool, and we've seen them until you click the magical button and you see the full art versions, which are just unbelievably gorgeous. They're all going to be foil, which is amazing, and it just added another kind of layer of awesome things that Unstable is doing. And it broke another barrier, and I love that that's where they get to do that with unsets.
It's funny because I've seen that particular zombie art before and had no interest in it when it had the frame, and it had nothing to do with the frame. Like even the art didn't really speak to me looking like that. And then when you hit the button and the frame is gone, I can't explain it, but it just completely put my interest back in it, and now I want them. And whereas I didn't before, and the frame wasn't even the thing holding me back, but now I'm like, I'm in, and like I need that in my life.
Right. The other thing that these have going for them is that the previous unsets only had the lands as the things that you could use in competitive Magic play.
Right.
Now you've got lands and foils, and foil tokens in every pack, by the way. Every pack of Unstable has 1 foil token and 1 of the John Avon lands.
Steam Flogger Boss.
Or Steam Flogger Boss in the token slot.
In the land slot.
In the land slot, sorry.
Yep.
And so now every pack has twice the number at least. Like most of the packs didn't have lands in them from Unglued or Unhinged. And so now you've got all these things that you want from the set that is typically not a tournament set. So
I believe they all had a land in them.
Did they all have a land?
I recall them all.
In any case, none of them had a token.
None of them had a token.
Now you've got a land and a token in every pack.
Absolutely, and I think they look gorgeous. And I would also like to thank all of the modders out there, the people who have painted on Magic cards, who I think really showed, like, you know, when you go all the way to the border, there's just something magical about that, where, you know, it just makes it a little bit more interesting, it makes it more dynamic, it kind of takes away sort of like the constraints on the card. I don't really know how to say that the right way, I feel, but yeah, there's just such an impact. Like Aaron was saying, like, yeah, you saw that zombie before, but like now you're like, whoa, that zombie got real. Like, that elemental token is way more interesting now. That angel is just more beautiful because it's all of the card, not just some of the card. And it just makes the boxes of Unstable that much more, that you know, doing that much better. So that leads me to gather the townsfolk. And you know, Wizards giveth.
I'm going to sit back.
Wizards taketh away.
Yeah.
And I'm pissed. I'm pretty upset because
don't hurt him now.
Look, man, and I love Wizards. I think Wizards knows that, and I like to praise them when they do a good thing. Now, one of the things they did, and I actually don't have this in the show notes, is that the special pack that you get for buying a box on Black Friday. Well, you get that for buying any box now on Black Friday, whether all the way from Kaladesh, even Iconic Masters, even Unstable. You buy a booster box, you're going to get that pack for as long, while supplies last. So get your butt to your tournament, get your butt to your friendly local game store, and that to me was just like, wow, I can buy a box of Unstable. I can get basically $80 to $90 worth of lands right off the top. Probably a good, $15, $20 worth of foil tokens right off the top, and this awesome, pack that has these exclusive flip cards. Unbelievable. So they, Wizards killed it. You know what Wizards also killed? Iconic Masters. You know what's not selling, Wizards? Iconic Masters. You know who cares about Iconic Masters? Exactly no one. You screwed it up. Literally. We're talking about what you saw from Modern Masters 2017 to Iconic Masters. It's not even close. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. No one gives a crap about this awesome set. Legitimately a good master set. It's not even bad. I'm not even pissed off that the set's not good enough or the set's not worth enough. It's that no one cares. You took Iconic Masters and you sacrificed it on the altar of HasCon. And I hope you're happy. I hope whoever's idea that was just look, can we never do that again? Was that just the dumbest thing ever? Because it was. You took all the excitement and you just sucked it right out of it. And I cannot believe that they thought that this was a good idea. Because if you remember, for those who are longtime watchers of the show, I said, look, this is 2 months before the set comes out. This is really scary stuff. Wizards has never done this, and I guarantee you they're never going to do it again, because the sales of Modern Masters 2017 versus the sales of Iconic Masters, we're talking orders of magnitude. It is ridiculous. No one gives a crap about it. Why? Because there's no spoiler season. There's no hype. There's no ability to kind of ramp it up. It was just, here's the fire hose, drink from it. We hope you like Mana Drain, and we'll see you in a couple months. Well, guess what? It's a couple months later, and no one freaking cares. You know what they care about? Unstable. Unstable's doing great. You know why? Because we're in the middle of a spoiler season. Because it's a cool, fun set. Because there's really interesting things going on. You know what also has interesting things going on? Iconic Masters. You know who cares? Nobody. You know why? Because they weren't explaining this. This is ridiculous. It is literally one of the worst decisions that I have seen Wizards make in a long, long time. Because as good as that pack of foil cards is for friendly local game stores, is as bad as Iconic Masters is right now for those same game stores. Because they don't want the product. Players don't want the product. Who cares about drafting Iconic Masters right now? I want to go draft Unstable. I want to play with all these cool super cards. I want to see how Contraptions work in real life. No one freaking cares, and it's ridiculous. Now, and it's not just dollars and cents, but really these are friendly local game stores, these very expensive packs. It pisses me off. I didn't want to be right on this one. I wanted to say that the contents of Iconic Masters was good enough to get over the hump, to get over this crazy hump this crazy roadblock they created for themselves. And for God's sake, don't ever do this again. Just don't. I can't. That's it. That's all. I can't.
I have nothing to add. I mean, the anger and emotion is. I agree with it. We talked about it on the show. We were like, what are they going to do in 2 months? Just not pay attention? And sure enough, they didn't. And Iconic Masters is a cool set. And, we've had Masters sets in the past, and it seems like they really screwed the pooch on this one. So
yeah, there are a lot of reprints in the set that we badly need. Flusterstorm has been sitting in the $80 to $100 range for a while. Bloodghast has gotten as high as $25 at some point. There are some cards that could really do good out there. The gorgeous new Mana Drain, like you talked about, and it does feel like a really big lead was buried here, and like that set was used to promote HasCon, maybe because they knew they didn't have any other real way to attract people to it, and once it did what it needed to do, it was sort of thrown by the wayside, and it's a real shame, because they've obviously, on the one hand, they've shown a commitment to reprints and modern master sets and things like that, and to do this, and even going back from the beginning, it seems like everything involving Iconic Masters, even the name, when the cards were being spoiled, there were some people that were like, well, these cards are cute, but they ain't iconic, and so there've just been a number of opportunities with this expansion that feel like a bit of a fail, and this is sort of the cherry on a very, very messy Sunday.
It's just, I think we've literally reached the point where it's like, Wizards, you gotta stop, okay? You've made too many things.
It kind of feels like when a musician has like the last album in their contract, and you can tell that it's like not, it's not really their style. The songs aren't particularly good, but they just had to get that last album in. That's kind of how Iconic Masters feels, where it's like, well, we committed to doing this, and the set name got leaked, and so I guess we got to make a set now, and you throw together some reprints, and that's just kind of what it reminds me of just sort of a contractual obligation, if you will.
Honestly, it feels like what they could have done was literally switch the spoiler season and quote-unquote spoiler season of Unstable with Iconic Masters. They could have just come out with Unstable with no spoiler, and it would have had the same kind of hype, and we'd still be kind of excited about it because it's a joke set, and we would have been okay with that, and then given Iconic Masters this time slot, given Iconic Masters the week, 2 weeks of build-up, because that's a set you actually want to sell for constructed formats in Magic the Gathering, whereas, Unstable is going to be a ton of fun, and it's getting a lot of hype, a lot more hype than it probably should be getting because it looks so cool, but also because it's not up against a Masters expansion that should be getting at least some of that attention. Also, it's more than a little ironic that a card in Unstable, Crowstorm, is more iconic than every card in Iconic Masters. That's a little weird.
I also can't help but wonder, you brought up a really good point, Ruben, of possibly just swapping the sets and taking using Unstable as sort of your promotional set, and maybe there would have been a way to incorporate the themes from Unstable into HasCon. You've got robots and spies and zombies, and you could have made that sort of the kitschy, how with every Pro Tour they use sort of the set pieces. So when we had the Pro Tour Shadows over Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad, there were tombstones and cages and dead things. And it's like you could have done HasCon, robots and gadgets and spies
and gears and
use that as your theme. Whereas Iconic Masters doesn't really have a theme other than just sort of powerful cards. And it does seem like you could have just as easily swapped the sets and still got the desired effect of promoting your con. And also, and I'm not really sure.
Well, I
would have loved that. I would have loved walking around HasCon if HasCon had advertised, we're going to have a bunch of stuff from Crossbreed Labs and Goblin Contraptions and all this, and Order of the Widget, and we're going to have like a weird, exactly, like a weird escape room promo or something like that. I would have been much more apt to want to go to it. And then you could do something like, we're not spoiling the set, but you know what? We'll give away some of the Iconic Masters packs, or do something like that. Then that probably would have worked out a lot better than what they're currently doing, which, let's make no bones about this, Iconic Masters is way under expectation for what I would have anticipated in terms of hype, in terms of my perceived sales of the product. I haven't seen a single Iconic Masters event posted about
in the Las Vegas Magic the Gathering community. Yeah. And we have a big Magic community out here. I haven't seen a single one. So
well, because the hype is right there. I mean, and I agree with you. Unstable would have made the perfect choice. Now, contraptions are weird, but it would have made the perfect choice for something that's supposed to be bring around families. It's supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be fun. It has a million different ways to riff on it. And instead, you're like, well, here's a bunch of money, and we know you'll show up for dollars, and you should come and show up for dollars. The other half of this of what's going on is that Wizards is just making too many things. You have to stop. Of the last 6 weeks of the year, or the last 6 weeks, sort of at the end of the year here, we have a product like every single week. We had the dual deck. We have Explorers of Ixalan coming out. Do you remember that thing, the board game thing? Okay, sure, whatever. Iconic Masters coming out. You have From the Vault coming out. Like
dual decks.
But the Murphy Lords of Goblins. You just there's sometimes you can just too much, and you also have Unstable. You have another complete new set showing up in the middle of all that, and something has to be the best, and something has to be the worst, and at some point, we can't buy all the things all the time. So maybe, we just didn't do all these things. Maybe that would have been better.
But I can't help. I got to bring it back to RuPaul. When RuPaul sometimes says, you lack vision. It just feels like there was no narrowing of the vision. It was just, their product catalog looks like Jiggly Caliente, just where everything.
Yeah.
I love the Drag Race references. I love it. It's so good.
A little deep there. It's just
the next 6 weeks. Sorry, the next 6 weeks are going to be Iconic Masters, the From the Vault, the Explorers, Unstable, the holiday stuff, and then Rivals. Like, it's too much. It's too many things.
It's just a lot, and it's a lot to ask for a friendly local game store to carry all these products, be able to buy all these things, and I mean, even just sort of as the end Magic user, as the end player, how much money, how many of your dollars are able to go to all these different things? And Unstable is doing amazing, whereas Iconic Masters is doing terrible for a whole variety of reasons I just went over. But again, part of it, I think, not only did they screw up Iconic Masters in a unbelievable fashion. The other half is, I think, just there's too many products. You gotta sometimes, control your flow, man. Come on. Yeah. All right. So, in a much more positive fashion, who would like to take the Gerry Thompson article?
I'll start. You do it. You go.
Okay.
Go for it.
You can if you want to.
Oh, I'll chime in later, but I'll let you get started.
So Gerry T had apparently posted an article, I think it was 2 weeks ago, on Star City Games Premium, because he's one of their premium writers, as he should be. He's amazing. But sometimes Star City releases premium articles early to the select side, whether because they have a really great message or whether the information is really sound, the data is really sound, or whatever they're covering. And he wrote an article that was called Social Currency, and he basically just sort of goes over his history as a Magic player and the growth that he's experienced, and he gets very candid about it. This was very difficult to read in a good way. This was definitely a piece that you read and it kind of challenges you to sort of look at yourself. And sometimes, when you do look at yourself, or you do, have some introspection, it can be very uncomfortable when you may not like what you see, or things like that. And this piece really took off. It got a lot of accolades from people. And he basically just kind of talks about why he was the way that he was. He acknowledges that he wasn't always the best. And, he asked himself a lot of questions, which I know I've certainly asked myself, being a public figure, having a lot of eyes on me, you have to eventually look at yourself and wonder where you are. And he asked a lot of really good questions, like what makes a person good? What makes them bad? When do the lines blur? Can you judge somebody based on an action, a conversation? He judges himself and wonders, who he is or where he falls on that spectrum. And this was a really, really good read, and something I encourage everybody to take a look at, and, sort of just maybe take inventory of yourself and see where you've come and see where you're going. And I think it was really good.
I think it's a clear front runner for best article of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
If nothing else, I think it was a very sort of emotionally mature way of looking back over what you have done, why you did what you did, how you changed what you were doing, and as a result, what happens because of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I've known Gerry for well over a decade at this point, and so I know a lot of this struggle that he had. back before he was the most recognizable face of the SCG Open Series. Back when he was just a Midwest grinder. I would run into him at the Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio, and Cincinnati PTQs and stuff like that. So I know that Gerry. I met that Gerry, and I resonate with this too. Before I got hired by Star City Games the first time, before I was a writer for Star City Games, I was a terror. I was a horrendously bad person to have to play against in a tournament. And my friends tried to tell me that. And it's like, dude, you got to work on your table etiquette. If people judged me based only on what they knew of me in tournaments, I would have had no friends in Magic. And so this was another thing to look in the mirror. And a lot of folks commented that this kind of article was a nice catharsis, was a nice, seeing this shown a reflection of themselves. On a smaller degree, obviously. I never reached the heights of popularity or success that Gerry did. But folks like myself and Aaron and, I think Frank Lepore commented on this. I think I saw Aliantrazi comment on it as well. There are people who have grown and changed and evolved since they were young people. When you're a young person, sometimes you don't exactly have the best, front-facing image out there to everybody in the world. And this goes for all sports. But in Magic, it's a little bit magnified because it's a one-on-one endeavor. Losing is very personal. And you don't get the coaching that someone in, like, tennis or, another sport would be like that. So this was it's a difficult article to read, that's for sure. And I think that's what makes it so good, is that it's so real and just incredibly well written and touching. And to see where Gerry has come now to the verge of almost Hall of Fame worthy candidacy. And we've seen, in addition to that, we've had some other folks who are in the Hall of Fame. Folks like Eric Froelich came out and was like, this article is very important, and he's struggled with issues on this front as well. And so this article really is just a brilliant piece of writing that I highly recommend. Even if you're not a Magic player, I think that you can resonate on some of these topics, and it's just a great piece.
Yeah, I appreciated it, I think, the most because it didn't have the perfect little bow at the end. Even though he says, I've done good things, I'm doing good things, I don't think that necessarily makes me a good person, quote unquote. And, that's something I really resonated with, because when you are visible, you do sort of get put into those boxes, those very clean boxes. And people also like to play, they like to use the role model term. And, I'm the first one to say that I am so not a role model. Don't do anything I've done. Laverne Cox, actually, she coined the phrase possibility model, which I really like to use. I like to say that Emma's the role model. Be like Emma. And I'm the possibility model, and I think that's really important too, because like I said, as visible people, we do get sort of shoved into these boxes, and we do have those expectations put on us. And, I like that even though Gerry mentions the journey, that he is doing good things and he has grown, he doesn't necessarily think it makes him better than anybody. He hasn't necessarily ascended because of it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a really great way to look at it, because I think the response from people who see this would be to sort of elevate him. And he's like, well, I don't know about all that, and I think that's a really great way to look at this. And, it's not as black and white as some people would like to make you think.
Yeah, and I think it kind of pivots into our next topic fairly well,
actually.
Which is there's a website of hipstersofthecoast.com who I think actually makes some really terrific content. They do some great work
absolutely.
Coverage. And Rich Stein wrote an article simply about pro players should grow thicker skin. And Aaron, can you give us a little rundown on sort of what he was talking about, and then we'll discuss it?
Yeah, so at the last Pro Tour, there was some feedback from people who were watching at home who seemed to feel like there were a lot of punts being made in the top 8, and they were very, very vocal about that. And it got back to some of the players who were playing in the event, and it got back to some of the players who were watching who maybe didn't qualify or maybe weren't participating, and people like Jim Davis and Pascal Maynard. Side note, do you guys say Pascal or do you say Pascal?
Pascal.
Okay, I'm the only one who says Pascal. I got to work on that. So Pascal. So Pascal came out and Jim came out, and they kind of just politely reminded people that, hey, this is a game of mistakes. You can never really hope to play perfectly. Your goal is simply to make as fewer mistakes as possible, but just kind of gently reminding people that we're human too. And Rich's article came out, and it basically sounded like he was saying, like, yeah, well, you signed up for this. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically is saying that when you're a pro player, you exist to sort of be scrutinized, and it's sort of your job to be under the microscope, and we at home are allowed to dissect your plays, and you are here to put on this show. And I just wondered what you two thought about that, being that, you also have friends in the pro circle. As you mentioned, Ruben, you grew up with a lot of these guys. Do you think that they kind of signed up for this, or do you think that we should maybe have more realistic expectations when we're watching from home?
I think ultimately it's very similar and we spoke about this in the pre-show about celebrities are not supposed to have private lives. They're not supposed to have privacy because that's what they signed up for and blah blah blah. At the end of the article, it kind of They try to sort of put it in a nutshell. Rich Stein thinks it's a bit harsh to call someone an idiot for punting a stressful game of Magic, but we're not here to coddle pro players. We're here to watch them play Magic under the most stressful conditions in the world. When you play on the highest stage of competition, not all criticism is going to be constructive. Fans aren't there to make you feel better. They're there to be entertained. Why is it you're looking for a license to be mean to someone? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I just want to call him an idiot because he did something dumb or he did something wrong. It's like, how do you think that's going to help people? It's not going to help anyone. And, I think there was a difference because, there was the whole dust up with Oliver 2 and myself and the, stay humble thing or whatever. There's a difference when, he calls out a thing and there's a comeuppance versus like he made a mistake on camera and I supposed to be able to berate him. I'm supposed to be able to just like call him a doofus and make him feel bad about himself for no good reason, no constructive quality in the least. And he's just like, well, in pro sports, people call those teams idiots. And I'm like, and that's okay too? Like, I don't think that's okay either. Like, these people are humans. They have feelings. They try hard. They don't want to fail. They don't want to embarrass themselves or whatever. And it's not your job to be the person who says they did or did not do something the right way.
Yeah, First of all, I'm not really okay with the title, quote, pro players should grow thicker skin. Like, that just is I don't like the title. I don't like the straw man argument that leads to of saying, well, who's saying that they shouldn't? Like, that left a bad taste in my mouth. And I usually love Rich Stein's stuff, and he's not one to shy away from controversy, which is cool. But, like, this one in particular was just like, I don't like the tone of where we're started. Like, we have to start on even ground to be able to have this conversation, and I don't like where... And in any case, I think that there's an interesting line to be drawn between quote-unquote professional football player, right? You've been playing football since you were 11 years old. To do this for your entire life, you've been in the national spotlight for probably 6 years since you signed to a college and they got drafted in the NFL and they started getting paid millions of dollars. There's a difference between that and finding yourself on the Pro Tour stage or at the World Series of Poker final table or, not having done this quote-unquote professionally for a very long time and then finding yourself on the highest stage of competition. I think there is a difference between those two things. And the main difference is that when you are famous or preparing to be famous for a very long period of time, you get training. You get somebody who tells you how to act on camera, who tells you how to respond to things like this article and stuff like that. And so that's one thing that I'm one distinction I wanted to draw. The other thing is that I think that this article by Rich Stein in particular, focuses on a couple of the top 8 competitors from the last Pro Tour. John Rolfe and Samuel Eyenfeld, I believe, were the 2 first-timers who made the top 8, who were the 2 that he focused on making the most mistakes in the top 8. But also Mike Sigrist, of course, apparently punted at one point in his match, which, 3/5 of the top 8 making major mistakes is a lot. But by the same token, quarterbacks throw interceptions in the Super Bowl all the time. You know what I mean? People make double bogey on the back 9 at Augusta all the time. These are sports references, Aaron. You don't have to pay attention to these right now. But people make mistakes on grand stages constantly. And how is Magic any different? I don't, so that's the thing that occurs to me. And I've run into this a couple of times in terms of, you find yourself in the spotlight. Like John and Samuel sort of stumbled accidentally into this spotlight by being one of 400 players on the Pro Tour who happened to have a very good weekend. Mm-hmm. And then when they finally got to that Sunday stage, did stumble a little bit. Mm-hmm. I watch a show called Critical Role, which is about Dungeons and Dragons people, and it's played by voice actors. They didn't come into this wanting to be professional Dungeons and Dragons players, and so they get attacked online all the time, every episode, which is staggering to me that you people are quote-unquote professional Dungeons and Dragons players making all these mistakes, and then they're just like, no, I don't do this for a living, even though I'm doing it on television, right? So there's a line to be drawn between those two things. This article really left a weird taste in my mouth concerning that line.
So, speaking of things that leave weird taste in your mouth,
I just wanted to add one more thing to that.
That's a great segue, though.
I still think I still think that even when these players on their worst day are still better than us on our best day. Like, if that's the only mistake I make, yep, I will completely sign up for that. Like, I think that's fascinating.
And to their credit, the three players, Ienfeld, Rolf, and Sigrist, all were super professionals on their social media accounts after the fact, right after they got knocked out.
Yeah.
Which is terrific. So again, speaking of things that give you a weird taste in your mouth, it was reported here, and I'll bring up the Reddit thread. It's always fun when we bring up Reddit threads. Alex Bertoncini was issued a game loss for marked cards in the top 8. Alex Bertoncini's...
Who is that? Who's this person?
Who's this guy? Double Explores? Alex Bertoncini's suspension has recently been lifted, and he was at an LCQ for the RPTQ this past Sunday. He easily made top 8 and then was then given a game loss for marked cards, which took him out of contention for the invite. And so this is one of those things that's like, ultimately it's just... if somebody got a game loss because their cards, sometimes, your sleeves are not the newest and judges can be like, well, you can use this to your advantage, blah, blah, blah. But context matters. And the context is he just got unsuspended. He's, one of the most controversial players there is anyway. And here he is with some marked cards. This is not the first time, even for Alex, to be known for this type of thing. Oh, it just so happens that your 4 Bitter Blossoms are non-foil and everything else is foil, or vice versa. Like, that's, or all of your Ether Vials are foil, but none of the rest of your Merfolk deck is. Like, that's a thing that has happened. And so, this type of stuff, again, we had that conversation of just like, maybe we got these 3 strikes or whatever, and he seems to keep inching closer and closer to that line of like, Alex, maybe you shouldn't play competitive Magic for cash and prizes.
Yeah.
So to clarify, according to the comments on this, so the TO eventually contributed to this thread and said that he was given a match loss for consulting notes that he made while he created, which he created watching other matches before his match.
Outside information.
To the final opponent. And allegedly, he had sent a friend of his to post a harmful review to the shop to attack the shop. And so it's like a bomb that just keeps exploding where it's like, girl, like, what is your life right now?
I mean,
I mean, on some level, it's like, the tale of the bear and the scorpion, where the scorpion's like, we both need to get across the river.
The scorpion and the frog.
You're a scorpion. That's the one. Scorpion and the frog. Bears and frogs are similar.
Sure.
So it's easy for me to... In any case, the frog is like, but you're a scorpion, you'll just sting me. And then the scorpion's like, but that would hurt both of us because we'll both drown. And then this frog was like, that makes logical sense. Hop on board. And then halfway across the river, the scorpion gets DQ'd for having outside information. And says, what did you expect? I'm Alex Bertoncini, right? So it's like, on some level, did I mix something up? I think I got it right.
Fabulous.
I have a copy of Aesop's Fables. It's somewhere in my room, and I'm pretty sure.
I do want to give a shout out to Mishra's Photoshop, who had the best tweet regarding this. So anytime that there's a mass shooting, The Onion just reposts this article that says, no way to prevent this, says nation where this keeps happening. Mm-hmm. And Mishra's Photoshop took a screenshot of the Bertoncini Reddit post and said, no way to prevent this, says only game that keeps allowing cheater to come back. And I was like,
man.
Yeah. I mean,
very good.
I don't I don't know. He keeps presenting me with moral dilemmas that I don't, as a social justice warrior, know how to handle, Evan. I don't know how to do it. It's very difficult.
It is very
difficult. Get him.
Yeah, exactly. I keep wanting to give people chances. I want to believe in the goodness of people's hearts. And yet
here we are, turning the corner.
And it's funny. It's fascinating to me as somebody who dabbles in PR and community management. Like, there are so many ways that he could get out of this, that he could navigate this transition, and he's just determined to self-destruct. It's fascinating.
Literally be the redemption story of the game's history.
Yeah.
Just can't. But he's a scorpion.
He's not. So we're going to turn the corner to the finisher. One of the most popular Reddit posts from the last week came from a user ironically named Path of Exile Player 7. In it, he asks a very simple question. Dear Wizards, when will blocking be making a return? Love, a longtime player. Several respondents offered explanations, including, didn't you see the announcement? They got rid of blocks. And blocking is about a 5 or a 6 on the storm scale, meaning it's likely to return at some point, but they need to find a world/setting where it fits. So, in an effort to help out Path of Exile Player 7, when do you think blocking will make its return, Aaron?
Well, for me, blocking never went away. It's one of my favorite keywords right after dredge, and I block at least a half a dozen times a day. Though, to be fair, sometimes muting is the better and more satisfying option.
Wow. Oh,
mute conversation is everything.
And we'll get to the winner here in just 1 second. Ruben?
Well, blocking has been pretty low on the priority list for Wizards for a while now. But thankfully, in the last year, with the current administration, there's been a big push back in that direction. So hopefully we'll be seeing more blocking in the next 3 years or so, primarily with respect to printing more walls, and hopefully making other players pay for them.
Well, with Unstable coming out, I'm actually a little surprised we didn't get Block Party, Communist Block, H&R Block, Parental Block, Split Card Block / Bloated, Block of Seagulls, Rock Around the Block, Block Chalk, Jayhawk, or of course the acclaimed German Baroque period composer and musician Johann Sebastian Bach. But I guess it makes sense to save those for the future, possibly in a 4th unset, because they just didn't want to go off half-blocked.
Family friendly, folks.
Family very much friendly. So
you never want to go off half blocked.
You never ever do. So congratulations to Jay Wiley 129 from Nashville, Tennessee.
Hey!
That's right.
Jay Wiley is my producer on Arcana Philosophical.
Doesn't he do a show with that one guy who wants to build Infect, or is like trying really hard to build Infect?
He's one of the hosts of Eyes on the Mize.
Okay.
Very nice.
I hope he builds.
Go check out the Eyes on the Mize podcast, and also you win.
Absolutely.
You also win some free advertising.
Yeah, congratulations, Jay Wiley. Well done. I will contact you in the future here in the next couple of days. We'll go ahead and get your gift certificate with your playset of our spoiler and all that good stuff. So with that said, that ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Sorry. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me. Can I squeeze in a thank you before we go?
You can.
Okay, I was at GP Atlanta this past weekend, and I ran into so many awesome people who love the show. Shout out to Jason in particular. Jason ran up to me, wasn't sure that it was me. He held my hand for a long time and told me how he never misses an episode of the show. And so thank you to everybody at GP Atlanta who showed me and showed us so much love. I really appreciate it.
Yay, that's awesome. So with that said, and thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. You almost forgot me a bit again, I noticed.
No, it was right there. It was right there. We also we're gonna head to
have fun at PAX Unplugged tomorrow, Evan.
Yes.
Yeah, if you guys see me at PAX Unplugged, say hi. It's gonna be fun. That's it. We're going to move to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website at MagicMikesPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMikes, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.